What if I told you that as a society, we are engineering the perfect superbacteria that has the potential to kill millions of people? A bacteria we are defenseless against and virtually untreatable. What would you say? Well, the fact is that it is happening right now in our daily lives and many of us don't even realize it. Let's take that ham, chicken, or turkey you just ate for Thanksgiving as an example. Do you know where this meat really came from and what's inside of it? You would think the meat you buy is 100% of that specific meat, but in many cases, it might not be. Let's explore a little. To make meat cheaper and cost-effective, many farm animals are raised under harsh, crowded, and unhygienic conditions. These conditions create the perfect environment for pathogens to reproduce and diseases to spread. So, animals are given antibiotics to kill off these bacteria so that they can stay healthy and market prices for meat are kept competitive. However, not all bacteria are killed off with these antibiotics, and those that escape death develop resistance and can spread the resistance to other bacteria. As a result, more and more bacteria are developing resistance against known antibiotics.
Were you aware that the majority of current antibiotic use in animals is to prevent and treat diseases contracted during the farming process? This pattern of resistance does not discriminate by gender, race, or location. Studies have shown that this phenomenon is happening all around the world. So what can we do about it? We should start by taking a page out of Massachusetts' book. Voters recently approved Question 3, a measure that bans the sale of meat from certain animals that are not provided with a sufficient amount of room to move freely. Could you imagine what the farming process would be like if the USDA were to implement similar policies? Simply reducing the amount of animals in a pen could lead to a reduction in the amount of antibiotics we pump our animals with in order to prevent disease.
Have you ever wondered what happens to your poop after you flush? Our waste has to go through several stages of waste treatment to prevent contamination when it is reintroduced to the environment. Unfortunately, livestock waste is generally not upheld to a similar quality of treatment. Improved centralized wastewater treatment plants for animal waste are essential in fighting the threat of antibiotic resistance. Studies have shown that inadequately treated animal waste can contaminate soil and water used for agricultural purposes. Basically, our food can become contaminated with antibiotic-resistant microbes and transfer to us once we eat them. Remember this guy? To avoid having our food contaminated with waste and antibiotic residue, the USDA and EPA ought to collaborate to improve the quality of waste treatment plants.
Unfortunately, the USDA has no current restrictions against the amount of antibiotics that can be used on livestock. Without regulations, farmers are able to subject the livestock to unnecessary amounts of antibiotics, which make it easier for the bacteria to become resistant to those antibiotics. You may ask, what can we do to fix this? Well, the USDA must first enforce a strict set of regulations on antibiotic use. These regulations should include details such as which antibiotics can be used for what purpose and how long they can be administered. It's also important that the USDA makes sure that the use of antibiotics is limited to the treatment of bacteria-induced diseases and not administered as a prevention of disease or growth method. Think about it. Would you take medicine if you weren't actually sick? I would hope not. Animals also shouldn't have to be treated with antibiotics without being diseased. If these regulations are implemented, animals who do get sick will be able to get better faster, and all the animals will contain fewer antibiotics, which means healthier and safer food for us. Healthier and safer food also requires the help of veterinarians. Just like we need annual checkups with our physicians, livestock should have mandatory visits with the veterinarian. Individual veterinarian visits must be combined with the regular checkups whenever one of the animals becomes sick. Only after the veterinarian has seen the animal and prescribed the appropriate medications must that animal be allowed to be given antibiotics.
It is time for a change. With the physiologies of pathogens changing and becoming more complex every day, we must be active participants in the threat of antibiotic resistance. We can do this through a number of ways, such as increasing surveillance of the usage of antibiotics in human and agricultural settings, as well as investing in pharmaceutical companies to look into the development of new antibiotics to replace those waning in effectiveness. Without action, we can expect to experience depressed economic growth to countless of preventable deaths. We have all the information to develop informed policy changes. The threat is real and imminent. It is up to us to hold the USD and other counterparts accountable to make these changes.